Camila woke up every day at 5 a.m. The work at the Almeida household was exhausting, but she took pride in keeping everything spotless. With every meal she prepared and every sheet she changed, she felt she was doing more than just a job. It was as if she were caring for a family she never had. Although she earned little, Camila was grateful for her job. After all, she had a roof over her head and could save a little money to fulfill her biggest dream, opening a small restaurant serving simple but lovingly made dishes. But her employers, Claudia and Alberto, didn't see Camila as a person. To them, she was merely the maid, someone who existed solely to meet their whims. Claudia, in particular, was a cold and arrogant woman who found pleasure in humiliating Camila in front of others. "Camila, is this a dirty glass? I can't believe you're trying to serve me water like this. Maybe you need glasses." Swallowing her pride, Camila cleaned the glass again. One day, she thought to herself, "I'll leave this place with my head held high." Despite the hardships, Camila found joy in the household's children. 10-year-old Gabriel and 7-year-old Sofia adored her. To them, Camila was like a fairy godmother. She told them bedtime stories and baked chocolate cookies on sad days. But Claudia didn't like the bond between Camila and the children. "Don't get too attached to her, Gabriel. Maids come and go. They're not family," Claudia said one night in a cutting tone. Little did Camila know that statement would be a harbinger of her greatest pain. It was a sunny afternoon, and Camila was preparing to clean Alberto's office as she did every Friday. Everything was in its place as usual. She organized the papers on the desk, dusted the shelves, and checked the curtains before closing the door. Hours later, Claudia stormed into the living room, holding an empty envelope in her hand. "Who went into the office?" she shouted, summoning all the household staff. Camila arrived with trembling hands, trying to understand what was happening. "I cleaned the office, as I do every week, but I didn't touch anything, Mrs. Claudia," she replied calmly. But Claudia didn't want to listen. She needed a scapegoat to hide her own mistake. The previous day, she had forgotten an important contract during a meeting, but would never admit it to Alberto. Blaming Camila seemed like the perfect solution. "The contract Alberto needs to close the company's deal is missing, and you were the last person to enter the office. Are you denying it?" "Mrs. Claudia, I would never do that. Please let me explain." Camila tried to speak but was interrupted by Alberto, who had just entered the room. "There's nothing to explain," he said in a deep voice. "I always trusted you, but it seems I was wrong. I want you out of here by the end of the day." "But sir, Camila began to cry, but her words were lost. The children appeared at the door. Gabriel held Sofia's hand, and she began to sob. "Dad, don't fire Camila. She would never do this," Gabriel pleaded. Claudia, irritated, pulled the children away. "Go upstairs to your room. This is not a matter for children." At that moment, Claudia's mask slipped. Her eyes didn't show anger, but a sadistic pleasure in watching Camila be humiliated. "Take your things, Camila, and if I hear you spreading lies about our family, I'll make sure no one in town hires you again." Camila picked up her suitcase with a few clothes and crossed the front door for the last time. The sun seemed colder, the path longer. Every step hurt, as if she were carrying a ton of grief and shame. What she didn't know was that Claudia had instructed other staff to spread rumors about her, ensuring her reputation was destroyed before she could try to rebuild her life. When the Almeida family's door closed behind her, Camila felt a chapter of her life had ended. But what she didn't realize was that her strength and determination would lead her to write a much greater story. Camila wandered aimlessly through the streets, with a small suitcase in one hand and her maid's uniform in the other. The day seemed darker, even with the sun shining. Each step echoed the humiliation she had just endured. As she walked, the curious faces of neighbors and acquaintances appeared in windows. They had already heard the rumors. True to her promise, Claudia wasted no time slandering Camila. On the rare occasions people stopped to speak with her, they asked with a suspicious air, "Is it true, Camila, that you stole from the Almeidas?" Hearing those words was like a knife twisting in her heart. She tried to defend herself, but realized no one was truly interested in the truth. For many, a maid was always guilty until proven innocent. Camila found temporary shelter in a small rented room in a rundown boarding house. The place was gloomy, with moldy walls and a constant smell of dampness. Still, it was all she could afford, with the little money she had saved. In the days that followed, Camila went door to door, knocking in search of a new job. But wherever she went, it seemed Claudia had already been there before her. The doors shut before she could even explain herself. "Sorry, miss. We're not hiring," they would say, not even meeting her eyes. Her money ran out before she could pay the following month's rent. Desperate, Camila spent a night in the square, curled up on a bench, silent tears streaming down her face. "Why is this happening to me?" she whispered to herself. As she gazed at the starry sky, something inside her fought against despair. Even though the world seemed to be against her, Camila knew she couldn't give up. That same night, as she tried to sleep on the park bench, an elderly woman approached her. Dona Lourdes, a volunteer from a nearby church, made it her mission to help those in need. She offered Camila a piece of bread and a cup of warm tea. "What happened, my child? Why are you out here all alone?" she asked with genuine concern. Camila hesitated, but something in the woman's kind eyes made her open up. She told her everything: her dedication to the Almeida family, the false accusation, the humiliation, and the rejection. Dona Lourdes listened to every word attentively. When Camila finished, she felt the weight of judgment lift from her shoulders as the older woman smiled. "My dear, the world can be cruel, but it is never bigger than the strength we have in here," she said, touching Camila's chest. "Believe me, what seems like the end today is just the beginning of something much greater." Dona Lourdes took Camila to the charity house where she worked. There, she was given shelter, food, and, for the first time in weeks, hope. The older woman also began guiding her on how to start over. "You know how to cook, don't you?" she asked. "Yes, it's what I've always loved doing," Camila replied with a timid smile. "Then why not start there? Show the world what you can do, and the right people will appear." That was where the first spark of a new plan was born. Camila decided to turn the skills she loved so much into a business. With the little money she managed to borrow from the charity house, she bought basic ingredients: flour, eggs, sugar, and milk. Her idea was to start small, homemade cakes and sweets, and sell them on the streets. The first day of sales was a mix of anxiety and determination. With an improvised basket, Camila walked along the sidewalks offering her products. Despite the suspicious glances from some people, there was something in her smile that won customers over. "Try a small piece, sir. It's made with love," she would say, offering free samples to hesitant passers-by. By the end of the day, she had sold most of her cakes. It wasn't much money, but for Camila, it was a triumph. For the first time, she felt like she was building something with her own hands. Camila began to gain small, regular customers. A young mother who loved her cakes for afternoon tea, a shopkeeper who ordered sweets for his employees. Slowly but surely, things began to improve. But not everyone was happy with her progress. During one of her sales rounds, she ran into Marta, the maid who had stayed on at the Almeida house after Camila's dismissal. Marta was known for being a gossip and fiercely loyal to Claudia. Well, Camila, I didn't know you were selling food on the streets now. Is it safe to eat something from someone with such a questionable reputation?" Marta said with a venomous smile. Camila tried to ignore her, but she knew Marta was scheming something. The next day, one of her larger orders was abruptly canceled. The client claimed they had heard rumors that Camila was a problematic person. The news was a hard blow, but Camila refused to give up. With tears in her eyes and her head held high, she kept working, investing every penny she earned into improving her products and expanding her business. One ordinary afternoon, Camila was approached by a well-dressed woman while selling her cakes outside an office. "Are you Camila? I've heard about your sweets. They say they're the best in town," the woman said, smiling warmly. Camila nodded, surprised and a little cautious. The woman introduced herself as Beatriz Montero, a successful event organizer who was looking for someone to provide desserts for a charity event with 100 guests. "It's a big order, but I see something special in you. Do you have the courage to take it on?" Despite her fear of not being able to handle it, Camila accepted the challenge. She spent the following days working tirelessly, with help from Dona Lourdes and some volunteers. When the day of the event arrived, Camila delivered desserts so delicious, they became the highlight of the night. Among the event's attendees were Claudia and Alberto Almeida. As Claudia tasted a piece of cake, she stopped chewing for a moment, instantly recognizing the flavor. This could only be her. Camila, she murmured, surprised. But unlike what Claudia imagined, Camila was far from thinking about the Almeidas. For her, the event was her chance to show the world what she was capable of, and she wouldn't let it go to waste. The charity event marked a turning point in Camila's life. After impressing the guests, she received new orders, this time from influential companies and families. With the money she earned, she finally rented a small commercial kitchen and bought basic equipment. She named her business Sweet New Beginnings, a tribute to her struggles and the support she received from Dona Lourdes. For the first time in months, Camila felt she was in control of her life. Meanwhile, the Almeidas began to feel the consequences of their actions. At the Almeida mansion, things were far from perfect. Alberto's business faced financial difficulties, and Claudia grew increasingly tense. Her arrogance, once a sign of power, now worked against her. "This is your fault, Alberto. If you were more decisive, we wouldn't be in this situation," Claudia complained, venting her frustration. "And if you had been more careful, that contract wouldn't have gone missing." Alberto retorted, silencing Claudia in irritation. Despite their constant arguments, the couple still found time to maintain appearances. But they began hearing rumors about Camila. "It seems your former maid is doing very well," a friend of Claudia's remarked with a malicious tone. "I heard even big companies are hiring her services. Who would have thought, huh?" The news made Claudia seethe with rage. She couldn't bear the idea of Camila, someone she had humiliated and discarded, finding success. "For someone beneath me to prosper is unbearable," Claudia declared to Alberto, who, accustomed to his wife's outbursts, merely sighed. Determined to sabotage Camila, Claudia hired Michael, a man she trusted with questionable morals, for a dirty job. "Take everything you can and destroy the rest. If she loses everything, she'll go back to being nothing," Claudia instructed him. That very night, while Camila slept, Michael broke into her shop and carried out the task. He stole the equipment she had purchased with such sacrifice, destroyed part of the kitchen, and left the place in disarray, as if trying to erase everything Camila had built. The next morning, Camila arrived at the shop and found it in ruins. Upon entering, she saw the mess scattered everywhere. Her hands trembled, and she fell to her knees, unable to hold back the tears. "Who could do this? Why?" she whispered, her voice breaking. It was a devastating blow. Without the equipment and with no money to cover the damages, Camila felt as though all her efforts over the past months had been for nothing. She thought about giving up and returning to the charity house. But something within her refused to give in. She remembered Dona Lourdes's words of encouragement and the people who believed in her. Even though she felt shattered, Camila resolved not to quit. In her darkest hour, Beatriz Montero, the woman who had hired Camila for the charity event, returned to her life. When Beatriz learned of the robbery, she immediately went to the destroyed shop. She found Camila cleaning up the wreckage, her eyes swollen from crying. "Camila, what happened here?" Beatriz asked, horrified. Camila explained everything, her voice laden with sadness. But Beatriz wouldn't let her be defeated. "I won't let you give up. Your talent and your story are inspiring, and people like you deserve every chance to succeed." Beatriz did more than offer words of support. She provided a generous loan so Camila could rebuild her shop, buy new equipment, and even expand her business. "This isn't charity, Camila. It's an investment. I know you'll repay every cent," Beatriz said with an encouraging smile. With Beatriz's support and the inner strength she discovered within herself, Camila turned the disaster into a new opportunity. She reopened the shop under a new name, Flavor of Hope. The grand reopening was a huge event, attracting old and new customers, eager to support her journey. The story of the robbery and Camila's comeback spread throughout the city. She became a symbol of resilience, an example of someone who refused to be broken by life's challenges. Meanwhile, Claudia began to realize that her plans to bring Camila down were backfiring. With her business stronger than ever, Camila was prepared to face any obstacle. But the Almeida's fall had only just begun. The days following the reopening of Flavor of Hope were bustling. Camila worked tirelessly, now with the help of Beatriz and several women from the charity house whom she hired as employees. Each dish she served was a reminder of her strength and her scars. At the Almeida mansion, tensions were mounting. Gabriel and Sofia, who had always adored Camila, sensed something was wrong. They overheard suspicious conversations between Claudia and Michael and began to suspect their mother's involvement in the robbery. "Mom wouldn't do that, would she?" Sofia asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know, but we need to find out the truth," Gabriel replied, determined. The children started watching Claudia more closely. One night, while she was arguing with Michael on the phone, Gabriel overheard enough to confirm his suspicions. "You were careless, Michael. You left traces. If anyone finds out you robbed that shop on my orders, we're finished." Claudia snapped angrily. Gabriel froze. His mother, who always prided herself on being a respectable woman, was responsible for destroying Camila's life. The next morning, Gabriel secretly took his mother's phone and found incriminating messages exchanged with Michael, detailing the plan to ruin Camila's business. During lunch, he and Sofia asked the family's driver to take them to Camila's restaurant without their parents' knowledge. When they arrived, Camila was surprised, but greeted them warmly. "Gabriel, Sofia, what are you doing here?" she asked as she hugged them. The children, however, were serious. "We need to talk to you, Camila. It's about the robbery at your shop," Gabriel said in a low voice. Camila seemed confused as the two explained everything they had discovered. She listened silently, trying to control the mix of anger and sadness she felt. Claudia, the woman who had humiliated her, was now responsible for this new pain. "I knew she didn't like me, but I never imagined she was capable of this," Camila said, tears welling in her eyes. Sofia held her hand. "We're here to help you, Camila. You don't deserve this." With Beatriz's help, Camila took the incriminating messages and recordings to the authorities. A formal complaint was filed and an arrest warrant was issued for Michael. When Michael was arrested, he confessed everything, including Claudia's role as the mastermind behind the robbery. Beatriz and Camila knew they had enough to expose the entire truth. They decided to do so publicly at a charity event that Claudia and Alberto organized annually. On the day of the event, Camila arrived accompanied by Beatriz and a police officer. Though she didn't have an invitation, Beatriz ensured they got inside. The room was packed with the city's businessmen and influential figures. On stage, Claudia and Alberto were giving a speech about honesty and family values. Camila waited for the perfect moment. When Claudia finished her speech, Beatriz took the stage and requested the microphone. "Today, we have something very important to reveal," Beatriz said, as everyone in the room turned their attention to her. The police officer stepped forward and spoke clearly. "Mrs. Claudia Almeida, you are under arrest for aggravated theft and criminal association." Claudia tried to defend herself, but Alberto interrupted her, furious. "Is it true? Did you really do this?" he shouted, losing his composure. Before Claudia could answer, Camila stepped onto the stage. She looked directly into Claudia's eyes, her tone firm but devoid of malice. "You tried to destroy me, but you failed. Everything I did was through hard work, and you tried to take it from me. But do you know something, Claudia? What you did says more about you than it ever will about me." The guests, stunned, watched as Claudia was handcuffed. "This is outrageous. I'm innocent," she screamed as she was escorted out by the police. Claudia's humiliation was complete. She fled the stage, followed by Alberto, now facing a scandal that threatened to destroy his reputation and business. The news of the confrontation spread quickly throughout the city. While Claudia and Alberto dealt with the collapse of their image, Camila saw her restaurant thrive even more. The public admired her strength and integrity, and she became a symbol of perseverance. Later, Alberto mustered the courage to visit Camila at her restaurant. He entered with a defeated expression, as though carrying the weight of the world. "Camila, may I speak with you?" he asked quietly. Camila looked at him for a moment, recalling all the pain she had endured, but she nodded. "Of course, Mr. Almeida." Alberto took a deep breath before continuing. "I was blind and weak. I believed Claudia's lies and refused to listen to you. Now I see how unjust and cruel I was. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I needed to say this." "With the serenity only the strong possess," Camila replied. "Forgiving isn't easy, but it's necessary to move forward." I accept your apology, Mr. Almeida, but what happened will never be forgotten. Gabriel and Sofia remained with their father while their mother was imprisoned. They frequently visited Camila. Alberto, seeking to make amends for his mistakes, began funding social projects in the city as a form of redemption. Camila used her success to help others, funding their projects and traveling the country to speak about resilience and hope. Meanwhile, her restaurant continued to grow, becoming a lasting symbol of her triumph over adversity.